Cathaoirleach agus Ara. Minister, this year there will be two important developments for the Jobs Club networks across the country and the local employment service networks across the country. One is we will have an extension of the services to those areas that are not currently covered, and I welcome that. As somebody who has really strong local employment services in our area, I really value the contribution that they make, and I can imagine the gap that they would leave if communities did not have them. So I welcome that development. But we will also see the rollout of a tender scheme for the rest of the country. And while there hasn't been a tender scheme for the best part of 20 years, and I understand from speaking to the Minister that there is no other option but to tender for this service, I have real fears, as do the local employment service operators, that the model that's being used and that the lots that may be allocated may mean that there's services are missing from our local communities. So let me talk you through that concern. So the first one is the Dublin North West Area Partnership in my area operate the local employment service in Rosehill House. They tell me that their fear under the new contract is that it is effectively a in and out payment process, and it doesn't take into account the really strong and qualitative work that is done with clients, and particularly with clients that might be experiencing addiction and who are working into recovery, people who have been long-term unemployed for many years, people who are changing career. And a simple entry meeting, exit meeting, progression tick is not the normal path for many of those clients. And if we only pay the local employment services on that model, then we will not get the same service that we currently have. Secondly, we have the Ballymun Jobs Club. So the Ballymun Jobs Club predates the local employment service. It was a co-op established by the community in the area to address some of the social needs in Ballymun many, many years ago. It has worked with different local partnership companies over the years, but it has operated at an independent means itself. Their real fear is that the lots that will be allocated, and particularly in Dublin, and I understand there are 11 lots currently, that if there's a reduction in the number of those lots, it will effectively force different local employment services to compete against each other for existing territory. Now that isn't what any of us want to see. We know these organisations are doing a good job, and there are mechanisms to make sure that they are, and that where organisations are falling down, they can be addressed. But we have a concern here, both in terms of the model, the technical guidelines of how they will be paid, and the number of lots. And the real fear is based on what happened with SICAP. I think everybody in this House would know that there were genuine mistakes made in SICAP. Whether you believe it was an attempt to privatise the service that failed because private operators couldn't deliver the same service that community operators could, or whether you believe it was a poor allocation of a tender, we have to learn the mistake of it. We have to make sure that the local employment service contracts that are rolled out do not decrease the lots and do capture the qualitative work that's needed by many of these agencies.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thanks, Chair. And again, I wanted to thank Deputy Paul McCullough for raising this issue here tonight and having this debate. And again, apologies for Minister Heather Humphreys, who, as you know, would like to have engaged with this with you directly tonight, but couldn't. Has engaged a committee, I think, yesterday on the subject as well. And I think, Deputy, she's certainly, if you haven't got the communication, I think she's agreeing to meet with yourself and a delegation as well to tease through your concerns and these issues here, and hopefully to allay your fears, which I believe she will be able to, because I think some of the fears that I picked up on from yourself, well represented here tonight, and from others as well, in my view, are certainly well allayed. From my time working with the Department of Social Protection, I'm mainly in the Department of Enterprise, but I also, as I say, have a leg in the Department of Social Protection, and working with that department on many of these issues when it comes to labour activation, and working with people who are looking for jobs as well, and directly with Minister Humphreys. So I'd be quite confident from engaging with them that they have the best needs of the individuals in mind here. And this model, and I'll return to the former speech in a minute, is actually mainly based about progression and personal development and engagement. And it's not just about in-out, and absolutely not, and I can assure you of that. And anybody who has those concerns, I would urge them to get involved in the tendering process when it comes their way, and go to the workshops on that as well, and they'll realise that that's not what it's about. Progression and engagement, and that's what the main part of it will be about as well. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to discuss these matters surrounding the provision of employment services in the state. The Department of Social Protection published a request for tender on the 26th of May for the procurement of regional employment services in parts of the state where there is currently no employment service. There's also a welcome expansion of employment. Sorry, this is a welcome expansion of employment services announced last year in the July stimulus package. This expansion of services involves tendering for 4 lots across 7 counties in the North West and Midlands. These lots are Donegal, Sligo and Leitrim, Longford and Westmeath, and Laois and Offaly. The existing contracts of the Department of Social Protection's main contracted employment service providers, including local employment services, job clubs and JobPat, all expire at the end of this year. Not replacing these contracts would entail a significant reduction in public employment service capacity. Instead, the Department is now increasing its capacity through the expansion of a new regional employment service model throughout the state. Interested parties for this current tendering process now have until the 7th of July to prepare tenders. While the procurement is competitive in line with legal requirements, there are numerous local and community bodies in those counties already supplying similar services on behalf of their communities, and they would be well positioned to tender for these new lots, and would have been fully engaged at various meetings and workshops by the Department over the last couple of years as we prepared for these changes as well. The key requirement in the request for tenders is quality of service. And we want to be very key on that. It is about quality of service. So we can assure, and I can certainly am happy to ensure, those who are long-term unemployed will receive a high-quality employment service. This procurement will ensure the state extends the range of employment services it provides to 7 counties, a welcome and timely development, because those counties on their own didn't have the service, as you referenced yourself as well. I know from before, and again from reference here tonight, that there is some concern among current service providers as the state moves to an open, competitive procurement process and moves on from the cost-met funding approach of current local employment services and job clubs. The current contracts operate on an annual basis, provide only partial state coverage, and have largely gone unchanged in over 2 decades or longer in some cases. In some cases, and not all, they are cumbersome and administratively burdensome for the service providers and the Department, and are not procured in a way that is in accordance with national and EU procurement rules. The new funding approach, with payments tied to the actual number of clients supported and weighted towards the client's engagement and progression with the service. Engagement and progression. I want to be very, very clear on those 2 words. Will be multi-annual, enabling providers to plan how best to meet the needs of their clients across different calendar years. Phase 2 of the procurement process, which will occur later this year, will see the Department of Social Protection issue requests for tenders to provide employment services on a national basis. A series of separate requests for tenders will issue to complete the rollout of the new regional employment service statewide. It is expected that existing local community providers will be well placed to submit quality tenders for these new regional employment services, because there is that look local and recognise the quality that is coming locally as well. And just to finish, the Department of Social Protection will consider any lessons from Phase 1 procurement process and apply them in the design of the multiple requests for tenders that will be published later this year under Phase 2. And of course, they've reviewed their ongoing work over the last 7 or 8 years as well, with all the changes through the intro offices and through the expansion of these services here, and all that's feeding into the changes that are coming through the system this year and into next year as well. Thanks, Chair.
Deputy McAuliffe.
Good morning, Tara. And I hear your contribution here tonight, and I heard the ministers yesterday. I welcome the fact that she's going to meet with a number of Fianna Fáil backbench TDs on this matter, because it is something that we are gravely concerned about. And I'll tell you why. My local employment service, as I believe many across the country, issued a press release last week stating that the government were implementing a for-profit model that would reduce community services. Now, I hear you here tonight, and I think you're saying that that's not true. And I think you're saying that when the tender comes out, it will not be the case. But I would say to you, Minister, and if you know many of these local employment services, they do not normally engage in that type of vocal political criticism of a government. And if they're doing it, it's because they are very, very concerned. And so I'd ask to make sure that that local focus the two words you used are really important, the engagement being the most important of the two, and that we ensure that those local services do remain. But what I am concerned about in your answer is the use of the word regional employment services as opposed to local employment services. And that comes back to the lot numbers. How many lots will there be in Dublin? We have seen with the previous SICAP model, Ballymun lost its local partnership. Of course, it didn't lose the service. A neighbouring partnership took over that contract and delivered the service, but we lost the local focus. And that's what we want to make sure doesn't happen. That's something that's not intended here, that something the government doesn't want, that we're not progressing a for-profit model, happens by accident because we issue the wrong number of lots and we end up different local organisations competing against each other. So I'd ask you, Minister, to press on the Minister of Social Welfare the concerns raised here tonight. I know I will raise them with her directly. She's been very forthcoming, to be fair to her, and she has given us a lot of assurances. But tender processes are rigid processes, and sometimes they have unintended consequences and unintended outcomes.
Again, I want to thank Deputy Conor for raising it, and again to assure you that Mr. Heather Humphreys will engage and will meet you and is happy to do that to reassure your concerns. And I want to be clear that this is an area I've had a lot of interest in myself over the years, from chairing the committee originally, working in the Department of Enterprise before, and back there again in the job creation space and good quality jobs, and making sure everybody has the opportunity to avail of those jobs, and for other reasons as well that I would be of a great interest in this space. And again, based in the Social Protection Department, and familiar with your two local services that you've mentioned, and I've engaged with some of the personnel over the years there too. I understand, and I'm confident that the department totally understand, and Minister Heather Humphreys, the importance of engagement and progression. If we are to provide a successful employment service to anybody, be they recently unemployed or long-term unemployed, there has to be that engagement, and it has to be about their personal progression and their specific plan as well to bring them on that journey, and the time it requires for some cases, and additional service, and some need extra time, and that's what it's all about as well, because we are determined to give people the best opportunity, and in some cases giving people a second opportunity, a third opportunity, and that's what it's about, and that's what these contracts will reflect as well. So again, I want to thank the Deputy for his contribution. I want to reiterate some key points. The recent tender published is the outcome of a lengthy process of engagement and consultation with all employment services. The tender will allow the Department to contract out employment services on a legally sound basis and in line with national and EU procurement rules, as well as increase the capacity so that we can provide a top-class service to people as quick as they need it, because we do know the pressure that might come on the system in the year ahead. So no existing local employment services will be impacted by this current tender phase, and I think you're aware of that as well, and there will be time then to review that process as we make changes for the second round later in the year as well. This process in both phases of a procurement is essentially focused on expanding employment services, primarily for the long-term unemployed. The Department is seeking to procure high-quality employment services focused on supporting those individuals, job seekers and other cohorts who are forward in the labour market. This will be a tailored, intensive employment service designed to address the needs of the people who are supported by the service, and bids will be evaluated on the basis of their quality and demonstration on how they can meet their clients' specific needs. Thanks, Chair.